Big Ten is the first of the power conferences to start conference play, and with all that we've learned so far in the non-conference about some of these teams, I wanted to give my updated Big Ten rankings. So I'll be going from number 18 to number 1 on where I think these teams will finish in the conference standings, and I'll also be doing this later for all of the other power conferences. But before we get into the rankings, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, and now let's jump into it. And starting off our rankings at number 18 is Rutgers, and the Scarlet Knights started off 4-0 but have since dropped 5 of their last 6 games after their most recent loss to Michigan. And so far this season, the Scarlet Knights haven't beaten a power conference opponent, and the analytics paint the picture as they are nearly last in all metrics for power conference teams. Now I will say, sophomore Dylan Grant has been a bright spot for the team as he is putting up 15.5 points per game, but Rutgers opened Big Ten play with an 81-65 loss to Purdue, and then they lost to Michigan. And looking ahead at their conference schedule, it's tough to see more than 4 or 5 conference wins this season. Next up at number 17 is Minnesota, which may come as a surprise to some as the Golden Gophers actually won their first conference game of the year against Indiana, but prior to that game, Minnesota had lost 3 straight, and their starting point guard Chauncey Willis Jr. got injured and is now out for the season, which hurts their depth. However, I have to mention that North Carolina transfer Cade Tyson has been balling out to start the year and is currently top 10 in all of college basketball in scoring, but the limited depth that they have and the fact that Tyson has played at least 39 minutes in their last 4 games and they only have won 1 of them gives me real pause on Minnesota's ceiling. Coming in at number 16 is Penn State, and the Nittany Lions' 8-1 record on the season doesn't necessarily tell where this team is at. Every victory for Penn State so far has come from quad 4 opponents, meaning that they don't really have any quality wins yet, and that cushion won't last long as they take on Indiana and Michigan State in their first 2 conference games. And I will admit, this roster has shown some balance and answers in tight games against mid and low major opponents, and freshman Caden Mingo has been the engine for them, leading Penn State in points, assists, and steals, averaging 15, 4, and 2 in those categories. But I have a feeling that once Big Ten play starts, this will reveal whether that success is real or a bit inflated. My number 15 team is Maryland, and I think the Terrapins clearly have talent with a roster that includes Pharrell Payne, Darius Adams, David Coit, and more, but there have been some major flaws that have shown themselves in non-conference play. The Terps were absolutely dominated by Gonzaga and Alabama by a combined 72 points at the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas, and at times, they just couldn't score the basketball, which has led to the 3rd worst adjusted offensive efficiency in the Big Ten. And if you have watched Maryland play, you know Buzz Williams leans heavily on Pharrell Payne, who followed him from Texas A&M to Maryland, but the Terps just need more from their other pieces in my opinion, and I think Maryland can cause some problems for some in league play, but from what I've seen so far, it's looking like a lower tier finish in the Big Ten. But the team I have coming in at number 14 is Oregon, and the Ducks might be the league's biggest disappointment to me after I had them at number 6 in my preseason Big Ten rankings. And Oregon opened the year 5-0, but struggled against mid and low major teams and just scraped by Hawaii and Rice before dropping 4 in a row, and it seems that each loss has exposed something new as they had 18 turnovers versus Auburn, allowed San Diego State to shoot 67% from the field, they went 1 for 15 from deep against Creighton, and then got dominated on the boards by USC, and missing forward Nate Biddle the past few games hasn't helped either, and with Big Ten play ahead, things are probably going to get even tougher for the Ducks. At number 13 is Northwestern, and the Wildcats have had an up and down season so far and still look to be searching for more consistency as a team. In their first Big Ten matchup against Wisconsin, Northwestern forced 0 turnovers in the first half and ultimately lost 85-73, and then they couldn't pull out a win in their second game against Ohio State either. But still, this group has battled against high major opponents all year, beating DePaul and South Carolina in close games while dropping other tight matchups to Oklahoma State and Virginia. And as always, Nick Martinelli has been outstanding, averaging 20 points and 6.5 rebounds on the year, but the Wildcats badly need some other options to emerge, and with Martinelli's production alone, Northwestern will steal some games in the Big Ten, but not enough to climb higher than 13th for me. Coming in at number 12 is the Washington Huskies, and Washington is one of the more talented teams in the Big Ten to me, but they have definitely been inconsistent so far this season. In the Huskies' Big Ten season opener, stud freshman big Hans Steinbach was unstoppable, finishing with 29 points on 11 of 12 shooting from the field against UCLA, but the Huskies still lost 82-80, thanks in large part to their 15 turnovers and streaky offense. Injuries have also complicated things for Washington so far this year, with both Desmond Claude and Steinbach missing some time in the early part of the season, but if the team is healthy, I firmly believe Washington can hang with almost anyone in the Big Ten, but I think Danny Sprinkle's squad just needs more time to gel, but there are too many unknowns for me to rank them higher. Nebraska is next at number 11 and has started the year off undefeated at 8-0 and has been one of the biggest surprises in the Big Ten to me, but the Cornhuskers are now dealing with a major setback after losing guard Connor Essegian to a season-ending injury, and what makes this injury even worse is that the Huskers' top scorers have all been forwards, with Rink Mast averaging 18 points, Price Samford averaging 16, and freshman Braden Frazier averaging 12, and although the trio has been effective so far, I think it's likely unsustainable once Big Ten play starts for the Cornhuskers, and they will need some of their guards to step up, but Nebraska does already have some strong wins on their resumes, with victories over Kansas State and Oklahoma, but without improved guard play, I think their ceiling will take a noticeable hit. And making it just inside the top 10 at number 10 is Ohio State, who has started the year off with a 7-1 record but have been tested sparingly. The Buckeyes dominated mid-majors and beat Notre Dame, but a last-second loss to Pittsburgh exposed some concerns, especially allowing points on Pitt's final 9 possessions through offensive boards and free throws. But still, the offense for the Buckeyes is legit and features 4 guys who score 14 points or more per game, and Ohio State is led by one of the best point guards in the conference in Bruce Thornton, who is also averaging 20 points on the year so far, and Ohio State clearly has talent and started their Big Ten play with a win over Northwestern, but some of their play against other better opponents has given me some real concern. At number 9 is Wisconsin, and I had the Badgers higher in the preseason, but their losses to TCU and BYU raised some questions, which is why I dropped them a few spots. Against mid-major opponents, Wisconsin has looked sharp and has taken care of business without any questions, but the inconsistency versus power conference teams has surprised me, and I love the roster that Greg Gard has put together and believe that the duo of John Blackwell and Nick Boyd are one of the best backcourts in the Big Ten, and Nolan Winter and Austin Rapp make a pretty strong front court as well and help give the Badgers balance inside and out, but outside of those 4 players, I'm not sure who they can go to produce, and the combination of that and their inconsistency that I've seen is what keeps them in the middle tier of the conference for me. Next at number 8 is Iowa, and I was all in on Ben McCollum, Bennett Sturts, and the new look Hawkeyes until I watched them play Michigan State in their first test in the Big Ten. The Hawkeyes were absolutely overwhelmed by Michigan State, giving up a 35-16 run to end the first half to the Spartans, and overall, their offense, rebounding, and interior physicality look like real issues in the game, and the Big Ten is known for being one of the more physical conferences, which does concern me a bit. But new head coach Ben McCollum has already changed this program's identity, especially on the defensive end where they rank in the top 10 for points allowed per game, and with a potential All-American like Bennett Sturts on the roster, Iowa is going to compete with just about everyone, but it still seems like he'll need more help around him for the Hawkeyes to truly hit their ceiling. And coming in at number 7 is Indiana, and the Hoosiers have looked like one of the Big Ten's most balanced and efficient teams so far. On the defensive end, Indiana held the nation's leading scorer PJ Haggerty to just 16 points, which is 12 below his average in an impressive 86-69 win over Kansas State. And on the offensive end, the Hoosiers have 5 guys who average 10 or more points, with Tucker DeVries and Lamar Wilkerson leading the way, and they both look like some of the best scorers in the conference right now. And although they lost to Minnesota on the opening night of Big Ten play and then lost to a tough Louisville squad, I still have confidence that the Hoosiers are going to finish in the top half of the conference in year 1 under Darian DeVries. At number 6, I have USC, who is my biggest riser from my preseason poll to now, and the Trojans have gotten off to a hot start this season and seem to just keep finding ways to win games. During Feast Week, USC traveled to Hawaii and beat Boise State, Seton Hall, and Arizona State to win the Maui Invitational, and then in their first game in conference play, USC went on the road and beat Oregon 82-77, and to make matters even better for the Trojans, USC head coach Eric Musselman announced that 5-star freshman Elijah Arenas could return as soon as January, which could immediately change the trajectory of the Trojan season, and if their team can just get fully healthy, it already looks like it's going to be a pretty good one, and I think they could be near the top of the Big Ten. UCLA is next at number 5 and comes in right ahead of their rival USC in my rankings, and the Bruins have a ton of talent on this year's roster, but they have dealt with a lot of injury issues early on and are still searching to find their rhythm. And after losing to Arizona and Cal in their only 2 major tests of the non-conference, the Bruins finally broke through with an 82-80 win over Washington in their Big Ten opener, and on this team, there are 6 players who average double figures, but their most important piece has to be transfer Donovan Dent, and it just just looks like he hasn't fully settled into this offense yet. But as always, for Mick Cronin coached teams, defense remains a strength, but the inconsistencies on offense and dense health will determine whether UCLA can climb toward the league's elite. My number 4 team is Illinois, and the Illini have one of the highest upsides in the Big Ten, but there are some clear vulnerabilities. In their aggressive non-conference schedule, it's exposed some defensive issues, particularly against ball screens and three-point shooters, where Illinois ranks very poorly in the country. And then on the offensive end, they've struggled from behind the arc and are shooting just 32.5% as a team, which isn't the best for a team that's near the top in three-point attempts per game. And their losses to Alabama and UConn really showed those flaws, but some of their other performances are what keep Illinois near the top for me, and I think they might have one of the best offenses in the nation. And if they can get all of their guys going at the same time, I truly believe the Illini can beat just about anyone in the country. But coming in at number 3 is Michigan State, and the Spartans right now look to be like one of the Big Ten's most battle-tested teams. Tom Izzo and Michigan State started the year off with 8 straight victories, including wins over Arkansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Iowa, and have a resume that speaks for itself. But in their most recent game, the Spartans did take their first loss of the season to Cam Boozer and the Duke Blue Devils at home in what was a back-and-forth game from start to finish. But regardless of that, there have been 2 breakout stars that have emerged for Michigan State and led the way, and that has been Jackson Kohler and Jeremy Fears Jr. Kohler is averaging 14.5 points and 10 rebounds per game, while Jeremy Fears leads the nation with nearly 10 assists per game and has honestly looked like one of, if not the best point guards in the entire country. And he is one of the main reasons why I think Michigan State is not just a conference title threat, but rather one of the best teams in the nation. And at number 2, I have the Purdue Boilermakers, who were initially my favorite in the preseason to win not only the Big Ten, but also in the national championship. And although I still think they are capable of both, there has been another team in the conference that has been even more impressive to start the year. But for Purdue, they had basically lived up to every expectation of a preseason number 1 team until their most recent loss to Iowa State, where the Cyclones absolutely dominated the Boilermakers on the road and ended up winning by 33 points. And in the game, Purdue struggled to defend the 3 and shoot the 3, and they also turned the ball over 15 times, which is just a recipe for disaster against Iowa State. But looking at the season as a whole, Purdue still has one of the more impressive resumes, with a win on the road against Alabama and a 30-point beatdown on Texas Tech. And with a roster that includes preseason All-Americans Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Wren and more, the Boilermakers have one of the deepest and most complete rosters in the country. But my number 1 team in the Big Ten has to be the Michigan Wolverines right now, and I'll admit it, I was doubting Michigan after their first few games, but what they did at the Players Era Festival might have been one of the greatest stretches of games we have ever seen in the sport. In Vegas, the Wolverines beat San Diego State, Auburn, and Gonzaga by a combined 110 points, with their lowest margin of victory being 30 points. And as a team, they shot 40% from beyond the arc and 54% from the field in the tournament. And when you are able to shoot those numbers and have a front court trio of Yaxel Lindenborg, Merez Johnson, and Ade Mara, there are not many teams in the country that can beat you. And as of now, Michigan is undefeated still, and there's not another team in college basketball with as much momentum as them, and I think that Dusty May and the Michigan Wolverines are going to carry that momentum right into Big Ten play and come out on top in the conference standings. But that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on my Big Ten rankings heading into conference play. Was there a team that you thought I ranked way too high or way too low? Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.